We are rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning back in to episode 7 of the No One Asked for This podcast. Today we have an absolute powerhouse in so many different fields, in the educational field, in the comedy field, in the content creation field. He's an absolute genius of what he's doing. He's a teacher, content creator, stand-up comedian. He's got 2.7 million followers across platforms. He's toured around the country for a decade. How many years? Yeah, around that.
Probably around
We're not going to give away the age. Don't worry about that. He's got a comedy special on YouTube called Don't Eat the Crayons, and it is absolutely goddamn hilarious. And he has a comedy show called My Straight Friends, which is taking over comedy clubs all over creation. He's absolutely hilarious. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Dombrowski. Joe, who asked for this podcast?
Honestly, who asked for anything? I mean, that's really the point of doing comedy, period, is you do it for who asked for it? Me. I think I did. I think you asked me and I was like, yeah. You know what's so funny too is like I think I'm the second person you've ever had on your podcast, and this is it
yes, sir.
too. Who in the right mind just like goes on a podcast that's just getting started? Me, because I have nothing to do besides talk about myself.
Well, I think what's beautiful about podcasting in general is that like even someone who's I'm very brand new to podcasting, but one thing that I think is great about it is just like the ability to sit here with my thoughts and be like, you know what? I don't want to listen to them. Let's force hundreds, maybe thousands, hopefully tens of thousands of people to listen at the same time. And do you know what I get in the comments? I posted a podcast that was literally 1 hour of me just rambling. It's me and a microphone, not even a guest. Truthfully, a nightmare for most people. So people were in the comments and they were like, it sounds like I'm on the phone with a friend of mine and they're going through a really traumatic life stage and I get to just like hear them out. And then at the end of it, I don't have to give any advice. And I was like, you know what? That's a compliment to me. I like that because I am, and I'm glad that you're listening, you know?
I feel like people like podcasts too because it is being a fly on the wall. You know what I mean?
100%. 100%.
Also, another question, are you Canadian? And do you get that a lot?
I am. So my mom's French Canadian.
Okay. You sound super Canadian.
But now I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Dombrowski?
Oh yeah, I'm Polish. You're Polish.
Polish.
Too, right?
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say because in the banner that I put up to promote this, I was like, we're gonna commiserate over teaching and content creation and having names that nobody can pronounce. But I feel like at the same time, as far as Polish last names go, we're kind of killing it. Like they're very phonetic.
Here's the thing too. Yeah, we are. Oh my God. Like one of my best friends from college, his last name's Blazik, and it's like ZZY LMNOP. It's nuts.
Oh, it's insane.
I taught in Chicago for a year, and that's like a home of Polish people. So I had all of the kids' moms were like making me pierogi and stuff, bringing it to school. It was pretty great. I was definitely had a little bit of a fupa that year, but whatever.
Well, let me tell you, I back in what was it? It was August. My father, my brother, and we went to the town in Poland that my dad is from. It's called Gdansk. It's way out. It's like central northern Poland. And I thought that we had like kind of a look to us. And then we went there and I was like, oh, we are copied and paste of every single person that I'm seeing on this street. And we're all just as annoying. So it's like kind of a beautiful connection where it's like I'm not super annoyed by you because you sound just like me. You love going out and partying. You could talk to a wall and you do.
Yeah.
But no, it was a great experience. And with the fupa, I'm like still working it off. I counted. I had 56 pierogies in 4 days.
That's beautiful though. Oh,
that's a dumb thing to do.
My parents just left. They came to visit for a few days, and we had Polish food like probably 4 days in a row for lunch and dinner. It was wild.
Jesus. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, it's a dream though, like
it is.
all of the meals that I had were absolutely phenomenal.
Do you have a King Charles Spaniel?
There is a King Charles.
Holy shit.
Well, actually, did you see Rania just walked by? Rania, come say hi to Joe.
She's like, I gotta go. Saw the dog. That's amazing.
This is my beautiful pre-wife. Here, talk
Good
right
to
here.
see
Say
you.
hi.
Hello.
Hello. I know you can't hear me. I can hear you and your dog.
I
My
can't
dog's
hear
You
upstairs
him.
can't. I
dying.
just realized you can't hear him. He saw Boo and was like, "Is that a King
Yeah,
Charles?" Yeah,
she's.
she's mental. She thinks that
I
she's a
love it.
guard dog, and she's the opposite of a guard dog.
Oh, my dog's the same way. Well, my dog is 85 pounds, golden retriever, and he will completely lay all over you. Like he's 7 pounds.
Well, let me tell you something. Your dog is the dog that I want. I've said this for years, for as long as I can remember ever even wanting. Jesus, Boo. For as long as I've ever even wanted a dog, it's always been a golden retriever. And then a bunch of
Yeah.
people have looked at me and they've been like, all right, you're the golden retriever in your relationship. Why wouldn't you get a golden retriever? And what's funny is Ranya's obviously the black cat. And she's wanted a black cat for the longest time. So at some point soon, I'm going to have to go find a black cat for her.
Yeah. Personally allergic to all forms of so I will not be getting a cat anytime soon. You can cut that if you need to, but I don't know how far you take it on this podcast.
I can
Right.
blur out whatever I need to, but
Yeah,
that is
just add a little
that
cat,
is
add a cat meowing sound
so
effect.
beautiful. Oh, I love that. Okay, so here's something that everyone should know. Everyone who's listening, I first heard of Joe, and this is going to be the most fangirl thing you've ever
Oh,
heard in
this
your
is
whole
so
life.
funny. I
This
love
is the
this.
best thing I've ever seen.
I
Okay,
love this.
so set the scene. It's Boston. It's 4 years ago, maybe almost
I also
5.
remember too. Yeah, okay, like tell the story and then I'll get to this.
Okay,
Yeah, it was probably like
so
4 or 5 years ago. I think it was my first time doing the Wilbur.
yeah, so
Yeah.
the Wilbur, Joe is having a show, and my friend brought me, and she was like, "It's a teacher comic. He's hilarious. You're gonna love him." And I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna be completely straight up with you. When I watch comedy, I'm a huge fan, and we've talked about this before. I like raunchy, out there, shock, just like mental unwellness type comedy. And I thought to myself, I was like, what are the odds that this person is able to have the mind to be a teacher, become a comedian, but also be able to tell jokes that I thought were funny? And holy shit, did he deliver? Like
Mhm.
even the people who opened for you, I was like absolutely stunned by the people that opened for you. And I
Yeah.
watched the show obviously, and so we got out, right? The show was amazing. We got out, and I I posted a picture on my story of the show, and all I see in my inbox is Joe Dombrowski. He sent me a message. I think you were like, "Thanks for coming to the show." And at this point, like I was like starting up a little bit on TikTok, but I was probably at like what 200,000, something like this. I wasn't mentally prepared or emotionally prepared for the person on stage to be DMing me. And then we went back and forth, and he was telling me, he was like, "It looks like you're into fishing. I'm into
Well,
fishing."
that's what first of all, you're
Exactly.
okay. Anybody listening to this is gonna be like, oh, Joe's a predator. No, that's not what happened. Okay, you at the time were going by the username fishing for clout.
Yep.
And I always, one thing I always do is after a show, I always go through my messages and people who have tagged me in their story or said they're at the show, as many as I can. I do that. I say, thanks for coming. Thank you for being here. Repost it to my story or whatever. It, seeing someone's name being fishing, because for some, I was like, wait, what? Like, this is so not what typically would come to my show. And then I went and your page was mainly about fishing. And a lot of
Mhm.
people don't know about me is I love fishing.
Mhm.
I am very, very into fishing. So then I'm like on your page, I'm like, oh, this mother. And then you said that, then we just started chatting, and then I was like, oh, he's like doing what I was doing like 6 years ago, like he's trying it. And then
Exactly.
this mother, and then this mother. Okay, we talk a little bit. I say thank you for coming. It was so nice to see you. Blah 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 blah. It goes away. Never
Mhm.
talk again. Anything like that. Out of nowhere, pops up on my fucking For You page with like 1 million followers, and then I go to your Instagram. You got like 600 something thousand followers on this. I'm like, this little bitch right here. What did he do? There was just
Literally
so
nothing
much
worth it.
space. There was so much space. Like I was like, oh my god, this guy's just like something now. Like what happened?
Honestly, I genuinely have no idea. To this day, I'm as confused as anyone in the world, and I can only
No, you're
imagine how
not.
weird that.
No, you're not, because you wanted it. Like you, I remember
Oh.
even when I saw your page, like you were trying to do something, but it was clear
Mhm.
you didn't quite know what it was yet, but you were clear that you could do it.
So there were two things that I knew I loved to do. Okay, like off the bat, like my whole life before social media was ever even something that I ever thought about at all, because I
Oh,
didn't.
how old are you? Or do you say that?
I'm 27.
Yeah, okay. I was like, you're not.
Yeah,
You look 20, 22, but
really. I'll take that. I'll take
you
that
look
to the
so
bank.
young. You look so
Eh,
young.
Yeah, well, when I was 22, I looked like I was 7, so that's
There you
it's
go.
not always a good thing. But
Right, right, right.
no, there were two things that I've always known were true. I really love bringing positivity into education. Like even when I was a student, I was like, these pricks are just like so angry all the time. I'm gonna come
Mm,
in, I'm gonna have a smile on my face. I'm not gonna give shit to the teacher. Like I'm gonna actually be here to try to make people excited about being here. And then obviously, like through high school, I realized I wanted to be a teacher. And when I became a teacher, that just got reinforced, where I
yeah.
was like, I love making education seem like a positive thing. So
Hmm.
the other thing I knew I loved doing was just making people laugh, and for me, like students, I think are a population of people who deserve to laugh the most, but are given opportunities to laugh the least because they're given this like you need to be an adult immediately bullshit from every angle. And while they do have to take their stuff seriously, they're not going to do that until the classroom is a place where they can actually like enjoy themselves and be themselves.
Oh, for
So
sure.
when I was able to mesh those two things onto the TikTok, I immediately found sort of like my place, and it felt a little more like, not to be like too woo woo, but like my purpose. I felt like the reason why it was getting so big was because there was clearly a need for it. So it felt a little less like, hell yeah, I finally get to like start making money off of social media, or like, hell yeah, I can say I have X amount of followers. To me, the biggest thing was like, hell yeah, someone's benefiting from what I'm putting out here, as opposed to like all the deconstructive shit that people do. And it's just like making people feel horrible about social media and about school. So when
Yeah.
it started, it took off. And I think the reason it took off was just because like post COVID and just the way that education's been forever, I think it just kind of switched up the way that people looked at education. And I think people accepted that switch more than I ever expected.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. See, people are always like, "Did you knew you were going to be a comedian?" And I'm like, honestly, yes. So I don't know. I just did. I was a comedian when I was in third grade for my third grade talent show. Was the first time I ever did
Amazing.
it, and then I just like kept doing it all while I was teaching. I never knew that the predominant source of what would catapult my career would be when I started talking about teaching, which I do a lot of, not so much anymore on
Mhm.
stage, but it definitely got me to where I am right now, and I'm super grateful for it. Now, the funny thing about it is hearing you say, like, I didn't think he was gonna, like, what are the chances he can actually, if I'm into this comedy but he's talking about this. Well, the thing about me on stage is I think for the earlier parts of my professional comedy career is people would expect, like, oh, wholesome kindergarten teacher, you know what I mean? And then they get there and they're like, wow, he's saying it. And I like that about me because I think I am authentically myself. Like who you see
Yeah.
on stage is also who I am off stage.
Mhm.
And that is why I also started doing it, is because I was seeing so much of this. Oh my God, you know this person. They're just like so positive about teaching. Everything's great, giving you all these tips, going to this big conference that's all about like the love for the profession. And I'm over here like, who's like that? Like, what? That's not my school. So I'm over here
No.
like, I love being with the kids, but I hate the job because
Mhm.
of the society around you and what like
Yeah.
the system in place has us so pigeonholed. So I was like,
Mhm.
I'm going to talk about that because
Yeah.
you're all painting this unrealistic thing. I think if I say the truth, it'll work. And when I did that, that's when it was like, oh,
Exactly. But that's the thing that, and you make such a goddamn good point where it's like, I don't know if this was the case. Obviously, you just sort of point out that is the case for you. But for me, my followers, my viewership, everything started getting so much bigger when I was the more that I was myself, and I think a part of that catapult was that I went from teaching, elementary ages up to
Mm-hmm.
teaching 11th and 12th graders. And truthfully, like when you're teaching elementary, you know this, like when you're in the classroom, you can like be partly yourself, but you know that like they're babies, like you can't be yourself. When it comes to the 11th and 12th graders, like I worked at a turnaround school, which was like, and you probably already know this, but for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's like it's if a student has like an absence of educational time because of for a lot of my kids it was like time in gang life, time in being homeless, time just like doing something that wasn't school, they come back. So for most of my students in 11th and 12th graders, I'm working with legitimate legal adults, so I don't have to quite mask myself as much. I can just kind of be myself. And I'll tell you what, two people love that. My students love that, and my followers loved it because they saw me just like interacting with kids as humans and not being like student two. In the moment
Yeah.
that I was the most myself, and especially when like I get on live or I'm doing like some of my stupid shit when I'm just like outside of the classroom, I have found that the more I'm myself, it just takes off, and I
Yeah.
imagine that it's a similar route for comedy.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's called finding your voice, and it really is. It's like when you don't care anymore, it does even better. And that never stops too. Like at first I was like very worried about like what the fans would think and am I gonna lose here. I'll spill it out for you for real. As far as
Yeah,
the
wait.
fan base goes. So I started doing, I'm not a teacher anymore. I'm not in the classroom. I'm still a big advocate for education and educators, and I still talk about it because I was a teacher for 10 years. I have
Yeah.
unlimited material from that, like you don't even know. So I still talk about it, but I'm very clear about that I don't do it anymore. And I was always doing teacher stuff, which is how I got to this point. And then I was like, well, no, I gotta be my full self on stage. I don't do that anymore, so I'm not gonna talk about that anymore because I need to talk about what's happening in my regular life. Well,
Mhm.
when I started to do that and I started talking about like my marriage to a man,
Mhm.
I got this like insane decline of followers, like going into the negatives per month. And here's the thing, we can all day be like, that's so messed up and I can't believe people. And I don't feel that way. I honestly am like, let the trash take itself out. Because if you're gonna, what happened was, and I didn't expect this, and it was so cool, is my following for like 2 or 3 months was a straight up plateau. I was losing thousands, but I was gaining thousands because I'm doing jokes about my marriage and
Yeah.
like being married to a guy and like all of that. So I'm like losing thousands and gaining thousands. It's just plateauing. And I'm like, this is perfect because like you're losing people who are no longer into what you're doing.
Mhm.
You're keeping people who are into both, and you're gaining people who are into this new phase.
Yep.
And when you do not give a that's
Mhm.
when it skyrockets. And then even further, for a long time in my career, and still sometimes now, I'll like not post something and I'll be like, oh, well, comic, like, I don't, what are the comics going to think? Or like, what are my comedy friends going to do? And I'm like, why the fuck do I care? Like, do
Like it makes
you?
a
Like,
difference.
Richard Pryor didn't kill
Yeah.
because he cared what the other comics were thinking in the room. So,
Exactly.
like, I don't know. That's how I am too. Like, I just posted this controversial joke
Okay.
about IEPs. I don't know if you saw it. Okay.
I don't know that I saw it yet. Let me hear it.
Posted it. It's like fresh. Well, I posted it yesterday. Well,
Mhm.
let's make the Fallon. If you want to hear it, go listen.
Yeah, I was
But
gonna
it's
say.
my very raw, honest take on IEPs being a broken system that doesn't really benefit the kid to the maximum of the ability, right? And I
Sure.
get pretty graphic. But I knew in my heart, I'm like, me posting this clip is different from me doing this joke in the comedy club. When I'm
Mhm.
there, they heard everything before it. They can take it into context and they know what I'm saying. So I'm going to post this one clip. And I'm like, okay, if I post this, there will be a chunk of people who are so furious and they're going to go berserk. So I was like, justify the joke and justify your point of view in the caption. So I did. I said my thoughts about it. And I was like, man, well, other comics are going to be like, if you have to explain a joke, it's not a joke, and this is stupid. And I was like, the other comics. Like
Exactly.
literally, this is a good joke and I believe in it. And if I want to justify it, I can because I wrote it. And the joke and it did really well and it's still doing really well online. There's a couple people
Good.
who are
Yeah,
mad,
no,
but
everybody should go see that. And the thing is also like nothing controversial, nothing that's this controversial and gets that much of a rise out of people is not worth talking about.
oh
I
my
feel
God,
like,
exactly.
and also, let me just add on to that, and I'm just going to put my 2 cents into it.
Please.
When teachers and people who are in education talk about education, you're not hearing it from some like random opinion that someone read on Facebook and decided to reiterate to someone else. You're hearing an opinion of someone that developed it by experiencing what happens in the classroom. So
Right.
regardless of whether or not you like the opinion, it's based on fact. It's based on like the merit that you sat there and watched it happen. And the thing for me is that like I'll have political conversations with anybody, but I'm not actually going to take in and store any information that's not from someone who I find credible. You know, that's the
Right.
fact of the matter. And I feel like I've gotten really good at differentiating
For
like
sure.
either someone's opinion or something that's based on merit. And when
Right.
teachers talk about the classroom, it pisses people off because no one wants a definitive answer to the problem of education.
Oh
People
my
want
God.
a
Dang
continued
it.
conversation, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's the problem is that people are scared to have one definitive answer because they think that if we follow that one trail, it could lead to nothing. But the
Yeah.
thing is, if we're not going to follow the one goddamn trail, we're never going to lead to anything, and we're just going to keep going in a circle. This shit
Yeah.
pisses me off so bad, and
Right.
I talk about it with a lot of people, but you're right. You know, and it's like, why would you care about the opinion of anyone in general? But especially, you're talking about something that you have an expertise in, you know, like a
Right.
mastery of.
Right.
It's insane, and it
Well,
pisses
that's
me
the
off
other
to
thing
no
too.
end.
The thing is that like I'm very privileged to be in the position that I'm in because I truly believe. I mean, I know from being a teacher, there were times when I didn't speak up or didn't say something or didn't get public with what was actually happening because as teachers, you constantly have your hands tied behind your back and you make one false move and you are canned. So teachers are
Exactly.
constantly living in fear if they say the wrong thing, even if it's in the name of what's right. The majority of people are not going to speak up because your job is on the line. Your livelihood, feeding your family is like on the line. But
A hundred
now
percent.
being a comic and not being in the classroom, but having such critical experience in the classroom in so many different areas, I'm able to legitimately tell you, no, bitch, this is what's up.
Yeah,
So you want
it's
to get mad
true.
about it, get mad about it. But like, think about why you're mad about it. You're mad about it because it's irking you and something's wrong with you because it's
Hmm.
true.
Here's the thing. You also pointed out something that's like, and it's so niche to teachers, and you're so right. That one person who has that like toxic positivity towards everything that happens in the classroom, and they pray to the feet of their administrator. Oh my God, anyone who knows me and knew the first school that I worked at, I was in Boston Catholic schools for the first 5 years, you know, and I'm not going to get specific on it because that's cruel, but anyone who knows me and knows the school that I was at knows exactly who I'm talking to. This person so the thing is, the school that I was at first had a lot of like circulating administration. And, you know, they had like one person who was in there when I came in, and she would kiss the feet of this administrator. But then when that person left and somebody brand new with zero experience being an administrator, 3 years of being a teacher under their belt, they would come in, and the minute that they got that plaque on their desk that said principal, there are shoes to kiss, you know? And this person would blindly do this with every single administrator. And one thing, they took it even further. So they had like this like mama bear mentality, you know, because they're a little bit more of like a seasoned teacher. And you know, when I was starting out, I was horrified because I wanted to do a good job and I wanted to have that support and that guidance. But I would go up and talk to her, and sometimes, like, the fact of the matter is that the conversations you have with other teachers aren't always like, oh, this is how you adjust this lesson to hit your time requirement. Sometimes it's just venting and talking shit, you know? And those venting sessions can be just as productive as one that feels more like a professional development, you know?
Yeah.
So people would go to her and she would welcome it. She'd be like, please come talk to me whenever you need anything. You're like my kids, you know, you're friends of mine, like first above everything. You go talk to her, you find out 3 days later that this was immediately broadcasted to anyone who got talked about. And I like got a call from my administrator to talk about like creating like a problematic work environment. And I'm
What?
like, are you shitting me? Like, and the thing is, I will say, like, I am one that loves a good rant. You know, I'll bitch and moan about everything, but I'm not gonna like say what I really feel. I'm just gonna like sort of get it out. I'm so glad I wasn't honest, because if I was honest, I'd be fired and being like charged with whatever, you know. But it's like this person didn't think twice to let the other shoe fall and run right into the office and be like, by the way, they're saying this, this, and this, you know. And it was just like, it's gross because that person, not only like you're acting like you're in high school, you know, it's
Oh my
horrible.
God. This happened. Something very similar happened to me when I was teaching 1 year
Oh
too.
God.
And my boss was like, "Hey, these people are saying this about you. And they're like that you're doing this and they don't like it." I don't even remember what it was. And
Okay.
I was like, okay, well, who is it? And he's like, I can't tell you who. And I was like, then how the supposed to recall? It's like literally tell me who so I can go up to them and be like, you said this, like let's talk about it. Like, what do you think I'm
Also,
gonna do? Put brass knuckles on and fight him in the parking lot of our elementary
right?
school?
What are we
But
teaching kids
no.
to do? Right?
And I was so pissed at him too because I was like, and they came into your office and they started saying this shit, and you literally didn't tell them, go tell Joe. Like
Right?
you are creating this bullshittery.
Mm.
The same boss. Listen to this bullshit.
100%.
The same boss. Literally one time, I had just gotten hired. This was probably my first week in the school. It's still summer. School hasn't started yet. I don't even know everyone. He comes over the PA. All the teachers in the lounge. Every teacher needs to come to the lounge right now. So we're all in the lounge. We don't know what's happening. And he's like, well, there's a lot of feelings going around. I can tell there's a lot of tension. Things don't go on. Well, you're all here and handle it. And left and shut the door. And like, then I start watching teachers like scream at each other across tables. He's not even in there to facilitate it. I was like, when in your right mind did you think this was a good idea? What? I know,
Also, with
crazy.
teachers, they hold it in until they let it out, and it's a
And
really
then
beautiful
they
thing.
let it out.
Also, the teachers that I was with, like the first school, it was like, oh my God, like a couple months old through sixth grade. Those
Mm.
teachers in those specific years, the preschool, the infants, the first and second and
Oh
third grade
my God,
teachers.
I'm so sorry. Here we go.
What's up?
Is my sound so much better now?
It's so much better now.
I'm so sorry. The first half of that podcast, it was recording through my computer, not even
Oh,
through
that's
my
okay.
microphone.
You
I'm just
actually,
like
it
sitting
didn't
here with
sound
this huge microphone in my face, and it's not even picking anything up.
just
And now,
fake.
hey guys, welcome to the second half of the podcast where I sound like a normal human. Damn.
No, I'm gonna be honest with you. I saw the type of mic that you have because I've wanted one for a minute, and I'm definitely thinking about getting one. Now I'm gonna. When are you kidding me?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the whole time I was like, shit. Actually, it sounds pretty good. So I mean, your laptop's doing just fine, but it sounds
Damn.
wild now. You got like
Damn,
that
damn,
James
damn,
Earl
damn, damn,
Jones deepness now. I love it.
I'm
No,
so
that's sick.
mad. Okay, well, tell the fans I said sorry.
Hey fans, Joe says he's sorry, but you can just go into his comments and complain about it. But
Yeah,
here's
please
one
do.
thing I will tell you. Like
Yeah.
those teachers that teach younger grades, they are doing God's work, but they have so much shit that they deal with on a daily basis that if you give them a reason to start fighting, they're ready to go. You know,
Oh my
and
God.
like in one thing that I loved about the women that I worked with in my first school is that it's like it was predominantly women because it's teaching, but it's like also they were so themselves, you know, and like these are like I can't say the name, but this is like a part of Boston where just like the people have personality, you know, like they are hardened Bostonians, and they're it's just hilarious watching them. But I think one thing that you made me think of when you were talking about that boss is that like the toxic positivity of some of these teachers, the problem is that they teach you to look past some really horrific shit that some of these administrators do. Obviously, I'm not naming names, but in my last year at the first school that I taught, we had this situation, and I'll try to keep it very straightforward, where we had a student saying things that are threatening that you shouldn't say about like stuff he wanted to do in the school. So basically, the way that this all transpired is we had two teachers for the grades that I taught. We had like the math and science side, and I was the English and history side. And he was saying this in his other class with the other teacher. So the other teacher went and talked to the administrator, as she should. Good choice. And administrator didn't say a thing to me. Same kid coming into my class didn't say a word to me. So I don't know that that's happening over there, right? So fast forward a couple hours, he comes into my room, and apparently they hadn't talked to him at all. They didn't call home. They didn't do anything. So he comes into my room and he says the same shit to me and in my class, and I'm like, no, like what are you talking about? I immediately call in my co-teacher and I immediately call my administrator. They told me that not only was he saying this in the other classes, he's been saying this in other classes for the past couple of weeks. You know, there are many instances where they had to talk to him about, like, we don't talk about that because it's very violent and very dangerous to be even saying these things. So I asked her, I was like, okay, so how many times have you talked to the kids' parents? And they're like, we haven't. And it was at that point where I had the common sense to be like, I don't care if your job says principal. I just got it confirmed from you that you have no idea what the hell you're doing. And I'm going to take it into my own hands. So I was like, all right, you sit in the chair like you have been this whole time. I'm going to go call his parents so that we can avoid this situation, because I'm not trying to be a goddamn headline. So I go outside. I call the mom, and the mom's like, this was the first time he's ever said this, right? And I was like, I wish it was. If I could tell you that this was the first time, I wish it was. I found out today that it's been happening for a little while. They just decided not to say anything. Mom, pissed. She came, pulled him out of the school immediately, not for the rest of the year, but pulled him out for the day. And then we set up a meeting. We had to have like a cop in the room with us. Like the mom ordered that a cop is there, so the cop is an observer, like there to see all of it, you know? And you know, I realized, like, I had a conversation with the kid later. I was like, what are you saying all that for? And he was like, honestly, I just noticed that when I said it, nobody did anything, you know? And he was like, so I realized that I could just say kind of whatever I want. He's like, I don't necessarily feel these things all the time, but I noticed that I can say it and get away with it. So he's just doing it to do it. But I'm like, what if he wasn't? You know?
What if he wasn't?
What if 2 weeks ago he was like, I'm going to pitch this idea, and then no one did a thing? He's like, all right, well, he just got the thumbs up on this. It's insane. Literally. But the thing is, those toxically positive people will make that principal look like a guardian angel for education. You know, like a trailblazer for our kids.
Oh my God.
And it's so bad. Right. You know, and they have like this cyclical, problematic, like, conglomerate together. And the more brand new teachers they can have come into the class, the bigger their posse's about to get, you know? And frankly, I know I got treated like shit by those administrators. And if I got treated like shit because I wouldn't stand for like stuff like that last story, that's cool. There are other spots, there are other kids that need my help. You know, what are you going to do?
I always feel like that too. It's like crazy, and it's sad that so many times in the classroom you have that situation where the kids can just get away with murder and they just come back. And it's like, I had a school that I taught at too, and they were all about like pretty much no discipline. And I was like, yo, if there's no consequences for these kids, this is gonna. And I was like, you can clearly see the writing. It's gotten worse. It's getting worse.
100%.
No. People just refuse to like open their eyes to it, which is wrong.
So one thing that I do on my YouTube page and on my TikTok and all this that I do a lot that people really enjoy is I read classroom horror stories from teachers around the world.
Great.
I want to read one of my favorite ones, but before I do that, I'm curious to know if you have any classroom horror stories that you want to share off the top.
Oh my God. I think the question is how many?
How much time do we actually have to tell them all? Yeah. What's one that comes to mind?
Like, do you want like a funny one or like a legitimate horror story? I mean, I wasn't like.
I'm thinking horror story.
Yeah,
I was gonna say if it's not a pew pew, then I guess we're no. I want horrific. Scare me.
Okay, so was a prankster. My first couple years, I had the building was built up on pranks, like the teachers to each other predominantly. Like to put it into perspective to you, one time we did like a secret Santa situation, and I got a bottle of Grey Goose that was dressed up like Santa from another teacher, and I was like, "Oh, this is
Okay.
so great! This is fun! This is what I love." But I left it on my desk, and then I was panicking because I was like, "Oh, kids are going to get to school before me. They're going to see it. This is terrible." So I was like panicking, calling my teacher friends to get it. Well, instead of like holding on to it for me, they took it, and the entire school day it was being passed from teacher to teacher or place in the school, and somebody in the building would take a picture of this Grey Goose bottle doing something, and I would go get it, and when I would get there, I would get a text from another person. Like one time it was like peeing in the boys' bathroom in the urinal. Like, and then I was like, where the is it? My boss was in on it. My boss took a picture of it next to her
Really?
with of Captain Morgan that was dressed like Santa. And then it ended up being
She's a real one.
they got the keys to my car somehow and put it in the front seat, buckled up in my car. It was amazing.
Oh, they're legit.
This was the best staff I've ever worked with.
Oh my
in my
God.
life. I'll never forget it. Never
That's
forget them. They were
amazing. No, I mean that staff, that's a good dynamic for a class. It actually,
We
you
talked
just
about the
reminded me.
wild goose chase.
I was gonna say, yeah. You just reminded me of a story that I actually forgot about. In my first school, we got scaring teachers, like taken away, I guess, because we had a very, very, very young group of teachers. Like this school, so the school that I worked at, they specialized basically in looking at the nearby colleges and like setting them up with internships and student teaching and like, you know, substitute work and just stuff to do to help you as an educator. So we brought in really young teachers, right? Like my very first year, I was fresh out of college. I did my master's degree during my first year teaching at this school. Like they took me fresh and they loved doing that. So with that young group of teachers, we were assholes. We just like did crazy shit to each other all the time until there was one. So there was, we had shipments coming into the school all the time and there were these giant boxes. So basically one thing that some of my friends who were at the teachers at the school would like to do is we'd put people into the boxes and then we would like ask people to come help us, you know, move the box. And obviously we're teachers. They're happy to help. So there would be somebody recording somewhere and you'd see them coming down the hall and people would jump out of the box. So turns out we had this one teacher, and I'm obviously not going to name her because this is horrible, but she's a little bit on the older side, and we brought her in to help us move this box. And I, unfortunately, was the person who asked her to help me move this box. So we bring her over, and the woman's just like happy to help, and it's like really early in the morning. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. And she leans over to pick up the box. This person jumps out. The woman shit her pants.
Yes, that's amazing.
Fully shit her pants at 8 in the morning. And she was like so she was so thrown off. She's running around. She goes, ah! And then just ran down the hall. It was the best thing I have ever seen in my entire life. And if all of them could have gone, and it was on video, right? So she's wearing, so she must have had like 6 layers of Depends on or something because nothing came out. But the principal naturally pulled me aside because I'm the idiot who was in charge of leading this singular horror case over, and they were like, "We are here to teach." We're like, kinda. This was one of the administrators who was actually like really cool because at first she was like, "That's hilarious," but
right.
she was like, she had to go home. She's like taking sick days now because she like shit herself in the hallway, and like. We had to like pay someone to cover her class because she shit herself in the hallway. And I was like, I get it. You know, if I shit myself, I'd probably go home too. But she was like, yeah, no, you're not allowed to scare anyone in the school anymore. And I was like, damn it.
But was she cool though about it?
She was. I should have 100% should have gotten fired. Like hostile work environment. Like I should have been on the news 100%. Sure. But oh wait, are you talking about the woman that shit herself?
No. The principal. She was not.
The principal was cooler about it than she should have been because she was like the good one.
For sure.
The woman who shit herself, she was laughing about it like a month after.
Oh, thank God. Thank God.
Long month, very, very long month. And I think she was like one of those people who like retired, but then was like,
Yeah.
I have a purpose, and like came back. And I was like, you're ballsy because we're
Yeah.
all 22 years old. We are hungover. We're going to play around.
Yeah.
So I have a horror story that got sent in from someone named Jamie, and they're from Georgia. Okay.
Hi, Jamie from Georgia. Good to hear from you. Thanks for your service.
So anybody who follows the Classroom Horror Stories I do on YouTube religiously, you've heard this one, but I love it. So I want to know what your first thoughts are about this story and what you might have done as a educational professional in this situation. When I was in my first year of teaching, I brought my students on a field trip. We decided to go to the zoo. While we were at the zoo, we stopped to see the gorilla exhibit. Everything was fine at first, and my first grade class was enjoying watching the gorillas play around in their exhibit. Everything was fine until we realized that the mother gorilla was pregnant. We realized this because she began giving the most violent birth we've ever seen directly in front of the glass.
Oh my God. Oh my
Directly
God.
in front of the glass where the students were watching. My students stood in fear as we watched this gorilla push out not one, not two, but 3 blood-covered babies. 4 students got sick, 2 passed out, and I spent 4 hours on after school on the phone with parents explaining how their children were forced to see the miracle of life. Should I get fired?
Oh my God.
So, how are we going to professional
No, she should
development
not get
that?
fired. They should not get fired at all. And not at
Absolutely
all.
not. That could have happened
No.
to absolutely anybody. That's just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
That's
And
just unfortunate.
That did happen to me. This did happen to me. I did take the kids. I did take the kids on a field trip to where did we go? Oh, the Detroit Zoo. And the kangaroos started to right in front of us.
Kangaroos are ripped too. They're not like slow rolling it. That's like pounding situation.
Done be
No, they don't play around. I kind of respect that.
fucking.
I
Yeah,
feel
the
like
roos are fucking.
every trip to the zoo for a school is either it goes one of two ways. It's either horrifically violent gorilla birth of multiple twin babies, or it's just like plain and old boring. I've never had a trip to the zoo where I was like, that went well. No kids are scarred. Everybody's going to be smiling on the way home. You know, and that's kind of a shame because it's by far the easiest trip to plan. But that must be the reason why it's the easiest trip to plan.
Has to be. And also
Okay.
for any parent who got mad at that teacher for that, like, please.
I think that they were the most upset about. I got another story. You're gonna die. I think they were just the most upset that like the kids had to see it. But the thing is, you can't cover 25 kids' eyes at the same time. That would be. It's impossible. It's not going to be able to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready for this one?
Yes.
Again, and you might have heard this before if you follow this religiously. My friends and I had a horrible game that we used to play during longer classes. This is a student perspective. I love these. It was basically truth or dare, but a million times worse. On one occasion, a friend of ours got dared to take one article of clothing off for each minute, trying to get as naked as possible during a lecture. In the past, we would get like our shoes and our socks off before we got caught. Not for David. David took off one article of clothing each minute, but the teacher was way too oblivious to realize it. More time passed, and David was stressing like crazy. He could have easily said no to the dare, but he was dedicated. Shout out to David. You should have seen the look on the teacher's face when he turned around and saw one of his students in his underwear in the middle of the classroom. David got expelled, and his parents got a divorce after.
Weird.
I don't know why they added the divorce part, but I find that so funny.
Yeah, I think the divorce was the divorce was happening regardless.
This was the
Poor
straw
David
that broke
for
the
feeling
camel's
like-
back.
Yeah, David forevermore feels like he was the catalyst for the divorce. David, you were not. Okay.
What are you talking, David? It's
Oh
your
my God,
fault.
so wasn't David's fault. That divorce was in the works. They just told him at the wrong time. This is
No, this is the
insane.
type of thing that makes couples
This is
therapy
why-
not work.
I will never, would never, can never, will never teach high school ever, ever. It's like a stomping ground of insanity that I'm not willing to go down.
Mm-hmm. It's
It's
crazy.
because
I'll
they're
tell you.
it's because they're people. Like here's the thing too. Like kindergarten and elementary school, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Also, even in sixth grade was the highest I taught. Even in sixth grade, when they're like sassy to you or whatever, you're just kind of like, you're so like sure, you know what I
You're
mean?
like,
But
what?
high school, I would be like, come for me, bitch. Like you look like an adult ass man. Try it. You want to be a big boy? You want to be a big boy? Try it, bitch. I would literally unleash. I would not be able to. It would take one kid to call me an F slur to go full on loco on
Mm-hmm.
these children. Like I would
And
be
they would too.
and they would
Mm-hmm.
know that that would get me hot and that would make me
Yeah.
lose my job. I couldn't do it. Or also, if like some girl came at me, I'd be like, "Oh, all right,
Let's do it. It's game
all
time.
right, absolutely." It wouldn't be cute. And the other thing too is, in elementary school, they don't have boyfriends and girlfriends at all. They still think each other are gross.
True.
I could not be in high school and then see them like kiss or hold hands or anything in the hallway. I'd be like, absolutely fuck.
Oh, I wish they just kissed and held hands. I wish. I don't know. Probably not that I've seen, but when I tell you, I have turned I had 2 kids in my class that were dating, right? And I let my kids sit where they want until they give me a reason not to. And I'm like, dude, you're my age. Just sit down. So, they sat where they wanted. Obviously, the boyfriend and girlfriend sat right next to each other. And they would do this thing where like they start off in their chairs, and then I would like turn around and do something, and then they'd be a little closer, and then I'd turn around and do something, they'd be a little bit closer, and then eventually she was like on his lap, cowgirl, making out like hard. He's grabbing her hair, and I look over and I'm like, this isn't like brazzers.edu. Will you chill out? We're not doing this in front of in the whole class. Like they didn't even care. They're like, oh, they do this all the time, and I'm like, they don't do it anymore here. It's not going to happen. You know,
This is
it's
insane. No. I'd lose my mind. I'd lose my mind.
It's
I'd lose
gross.
I was also like, I was a good teacher. I was a good teacher. We'll like leave it at that. But there were times when I snapped. Did you ever snap? Like I snapped. Like
Did I snap?
I was in teaching 5th grade. I'll never forget this. 5th grade, I feel like you can take it. Try the shit. You can take the shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, there was this one kid who was like super, like, oh, he got on my every last nerve.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of those fucking kids. But he had kind of like messed up teeth, right? And
Oh no.
this girl, like the girls had to go do their puberty lesson and they all came back in where I was with the boys. And this one girl came back with like, you know, they get a little bag of like pads and toothbrushes and deodorant and stuff like that. She took the toothbrush out and in front of the entire class threw it at him and said, "Here, you need this." Even though that kid was on my every last nerve, I turned to her and I was like, "Oh, hell no. Oh, no." And I like went in front of everybody. And I was like, "You want to embarrass him in front of everybody? Now you're going to feel it." And I let her have it. She was crying so hard. She came up to me like, and I was like, "No." And I said to her, I go, "You're mad at yourself." I go, "Sit down. You're not going to get water. You're not going to your locker. You're not going to come home sick. You're crying because you are mad at the actions that you made. Now go sit with that."
100%.
And that is the end. And then her mom emailed me when I got home and was like, she's like crying uncontrollably. "What happened?" I was like, "Oh," and this was my specialty. If a parent, and that wasn't a nasty email, it was not. But if a parent emails you nasty, you pick up the phone and you call their ass, because half the shit that they're saying in that email, they will not dare say it to you on the phone or to your face. You call their motherfucker and you say, "Got a problem?" You answer the phone. You say, "Hey, I just read your email," and let them go from there. They will curl into the ball. So I called the mom and I was like, "Yeah, she's crying, and here's why, and here what happened." And the mom was like, "Hell no." And I was like, "That's fucking," because she's got to feel this way and she'll never forget it. She'll never.
But that's beautiful. That is the sign of a good teacher. I hate admin. I hate admin that look at that and think that it's like, here's the thing.
Have a restorative talk with her. I'm not even gonna talk with her. She embarrassed the hell out of this kid in front of everyone. He's traumatized.
Yeah, and you laid the groundwork. Do you know how easy the teachers who have her for the next 6 years are going to be? Because she'll
Exactly.
remember that and she'll know exactly how that felt.
Oh,
Oh,
and
it's
you know what
next
else
level.
too? The rest of the kids saw that shit, and did they with me? They did not. They did not.
I wouldn't.
And
Listen, I
I
know.
had one foot out the door at that point too, so
Of
I'm kinda
course.
like, I literally have nothing to lose. But
No, absolutely. So, listen, I know that you got a hard stop. You got things you got to
have
do.
go. I'm so sorry.
Joe's a big busy adult, and I aspire to be more like him, as busy as he is every single day. No, this was awesome. It was exactly what I was
great.
expecting, and I love that I had
for
all these
having me.
questions. I had so many questions written down, and we got to none of them. But I think that's the best kind of podcast
You
because
know
it's
what that
just
means? I
shooting the
gotta come
shit.
back. Yep. Now
I'm
this
down. Exactly.
podcast is gonna blow up like your Instagram, and I'm gonna be like, oh, I was on the #1 podcast in the world. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I don't. If it ever gets to that point, I'll have you on 3 times a month. I could care
Religion,
less.
Sounds
Joe, talk to me about what you have going on. Talk to me comedy. Talk to me where people can find you. Let everyone know where they got to go.
I'm on tour right now. I'm going to be in Winnipeg in a couple weeks. Shout out to the Peg. Can't wait to peg in the Peg. And I am going after that to Newark, Atlantic City, Toronto, Portland, Maine. We're doing My Straight Friends in New York at the New York Comedy Festival. Oh shit, where else am I? Chicago, Atlanta. I'm all over the place. Get your tickets at thejoedombrowski.com, and you can follow me online using the same handle. Thanks for having me, Tyler.
I love it, Joe. You're the shit. I'll text you after this. We're gonna jump out of here.
Sure.
So for everybody who's listening, you could be anywhere, but you're here, and that's awesome. I appreciate you. Let me know who else you want to see on here. Let me know if you want to see Joe again. He's hilarious. I'm gonna ask him when he wants to shoot again the minute that I hit end. Joe, have an amazing day. I love you, buddy.
Later.
All right, take it easy.